Hi again, this is Jess from KnotSewOrdinary. In this video I'm going to go ahead and show you the creation of another one of these Bunny Snugglers. I've had a few orders of these embroidered face Bunny Snugglers, so I'm going to kind of work through how I make these with you today. So to get started, I'm going to begin with my fluffy, it's a Snuggler's Light yarn. And then for this, I do size up on my hook. I have a 5.75 millimeter, it's a J hook, so it's a little bit thicker. You are going to need a pair of scissors, and you will need a needle. It is also advised to have a few stitch markers, and another thing you would probably come in handy is going to be a tape measure. Not completely necessary, but kind of comes in handy if you're going to make this along with me. But to go ahead and get started, I'm going to start on the blanket portion first. So with the blanket, I'm going to go ahead and make a slip knot, and I'm going to chain 21. Alright, there's 21. So the second stitch from the end here, I'm going to go ahead and do a half double crochet, and that half double crochet is going to be the repeat all the way across. Since we started in that second stitch, I should have 20 half double crochets on my way back. That was 5. This is 10, and I can see you really can't see what I'm doing. I'm going to adjust my camera a little bit here. There. Okay, so I'm at 10. I'm halfway through this. One thing that I like to do when I'm working is to crochet over my ends so I don't have to weave them in at the end. So I'm going to fold my work in half and bring that tail in here so I can cover it in my work. Alright, that is going to be 11. This is 15. Now because I brought that edge in, it's kind of overlapping, so I just kind of slide it along. That helps just make sure that that edge is completely tucked in there. There is 16, 17, 18, and I'm just kind of unfolding this as I'm working along without pulling it too far. Here's 19, and then I just have one more at the end here. And there's my 20 stitches. So that is the start of the blanket portion. Now I'm going to chain one, turn my work, and instead of trying to find the top stitch here, what I'm going to do is, because I'm doing half double crochets, there's kind of a little bit more of a gap in between each stitch. So I'm going to go in between those stitches and do another 20 half double crochets all the way across. At the end I will do another single crochet, or I'm sorry, a chain one, and then I'm going to turn my work, and I'm just going to keep going back and forth until I have 20 rows. So I have 20 stitches across. I want 20 rows high. What I'm going to do is work this off camera because it's very monotonous to watch. So if you are working your own blanket along with me, just go ahead and pause until you get up to the end of your 20 stitches, and I'll return at that point. Okay, I am back. I have done my rows. I have it the length that I want now. So now what I want to do is do a bit of a border to clean up these edges and make them a little more secure. And in doing so, I'm going to go ahead and do a chain one. I'm going to turn my work, and I'm just going to do a single crochet all the way around. I'm going to make a crochet along the edge, back through the bottom, back up to the very beginning here. Since this is going to be kind of a monotonous, time-consuming project, I'm going to go ahead and do it off camera, and I will pop back on when I'm done with that. All right, I am back, and I have done the single crochets around the edge just to kind of make it a little cleaner edges there. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is cut my yarn and then pull it through. Then I'm going to go ahead and thread my needle, and I'm going to weave in this end just to make it look real nice and clean. And there we go. I'm going to go right along that edge there, tuck it into those stitches. And all right. Go ahead and trim that off. Now the next thing that I'm going to work on here is going to be making the 4 paws for it. So we'll go ahead and put the rectangle, the blanket part, body part off to the side. I am going to size down for the feet, the head, and the ears. The blanket I wanted a little wider stitch, but for the other ones I'm going to size it down a little bit. Excuse me. So with the paws, I'm going to go ahead and do a magic circle here, and then in the magic circle, get my circle started here. I'm going to do 5 single crochets to get it started. Well, my hook is spinning around and not catching. Okay, there we go. Sometimes working with the chenille, it's really kind of difficult to see your stitches. It's difficult to pull them through. Since it is difficult to see the stitches, I am going to go ahead and use a stitch marker here. There's my 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So then after the 5 single crochets, I'm going to go ahead and pull my magic circle. So okay, now if your magic circle is not going to pull because of the chenille, which is a common thing, especially if you have a lower quality chenille, there is a little trick that I learned, and I'm going to go ahead and incorporate here. So with this, I'm just going to grab some regular white yarn. It's not the chenille yarn. And with this, I'm going to go ahead and make a ring like I would for my magic circle. I'm going to pull my chenille string through that ring. So I've created the ring here. I'm going to pull this loop through the other cord that I have. Okay, it's not working for me. Let me readjust what I'm doing here. There. Okay, pulling it through. And then I'm going to go ahead and make that slip knot around this other cord. Okay, I'm going to put my stitch marker back on there. And I know this is difficult to see. If you do look up ways to work your magic circle with this, I know there are videos on this. That's where I learned it. So I've got my string here. I'm actually going to cut off a little tip of my chenille because it's, I'll pull it up here so you can see it. It's got like that little naked spot, and that was just catching, and that's what gives you the problems when you're trying to pull it through. So I just cut that off because I don't want that on here. So I have my other string in the circle, and I'm just going to work around that now. I have one single crochet so far. Let's go with the 2, 3, and 4. So now I couldn't do it before with the chenille, but I'm going to take this string and I'm going to pull those 2 ends, and that's cinched everything closed. Now I'm just going to work over these ends. I'm actually going to trim it down a little shorter here to make it easier to tuck it in. But we're just going to move on, and for round 2 we have, well, I did 4. I wanted 5. I already pulled it shut, so I'm just going to work with it. We'll do another round of 4 single crochets on this. So 1, and again I'm working in the ends of that other string that I put in there. 1, and then you really sometimes have to look for your stitches with this yarn. Okay, there's 2. 3. I'm going to add an extra stitch actually. 4. And then go into that last one. There is 5. Okay, now I want to increase in every single stitch. So I want to go from 5 to 10 stitches. So there's that first one in that round. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, I missed a stitch. 7, 8, and then here's that last stitch. 9. So there are 10 single crochets in my circle. So I'm going to do 2 more rows of that. 2 more rows single crochets, so 10 all around. Here's my first one with my stitch marker. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So one more row of those singles. There's my number 1. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So we have one more row here. I want to do 2 single crochets and then a decrease. So there's my first stitch. 1, 2. I'm just going to go on the front loops to do an invisible decrease. 1, 2, invisible decrease, and then we have the last 2 stitches. I'm going to go ahead and take that stitch marker out. I'm going to slip stitch into this next stitch, so there is just a little bit of a hole there. We're going to leave that hole open. We're going to go ahead and lightly stuff the foot. I'm going to go ahead and do that off camera, but if you get a little bit of polyfill, we don't need to stuff this overly, but we're going to put a little bit of stuffing inside the foot or the paw here, and then we will just leave it like this, and we will sew it on to the blanket at towards the end here at the assembly stage. So right now I'm going to go ahead and go off camera and make 3 more of those paws. So again, if you are doing one of your own, you want a magic ring with 5 stitches in the first one. The second round is going to be another 5 stitches. We're going to increase on that third round so that it'll be 10 stitches. 2 more rounds of those just single stitches, single crochets for 10 times, 2 rows of that, and then your final row is going to be 2 single crochets and a decrease. You do that, I believe it's 3 times, and then the last 2 stitches you're just going to do regular single crochet, slip stitch into the next, have a little bit of a longer tail on your yarn there so we can tie it on to the corners when we get to that part, but we'll stuff and do all the assembly at the end. I'm going to go ahead and go off camera, work on that, and I will be back here shortly. Alright, I am back and I have done my 4 little feet. So I just grabbed some of my polyfill and I'm just going to show you. I'm just going to take a little bit of it. I'm not going to overly stuff it. I like to break up my polyfill before I put it in there. It just makes it a bit fluffier. So I'm just going to take the little tuft, shove it on in there. Alright, that looks good on that. Get another little piece here and pull it apart and fluff her up. Grab my second little paw, stuff it in there. If for some reason you can't get it in there with your fingers, you can always use the back of a crochet hook or like a pencil eraser side. We have an overabundance of chopsticks in my house. I've used chopsticks in the past, so you can get creative, stuff it down in there. But with the amount of stitches we had at the end there, it should be enough for an adult fingertip to fit into it there. This might be a little too much. I don't want to overstuff it. I don't want it coming out of the seams or just too hard. This is a Snugglie, so I like to make it really pliable, real soft for the little guys' little hands. Alright, just take another little piece of my fiber fill, fluff it up, and there's my 4th and final paw. So I'm going to go ahead and just, since I'm messing with the paws, I'm going to go ahead and put them right on that blanket right now instead of waiting at the end. So I'm going to go ahead and attempt, so anybody that's worked with chenille before will know it is kind of a pain. So when you're purchasing chenille things, I'm not saying don't do it, but know that it takes longer to work with it. So sometimes that cost is going to reflect that. So anyway, now that I've got my hook on there, I'm just going to sit the little paw at one of the corners of the blanket, and I'm simply going to stitch through the blanket, through one side, through the other, and back through the blanket. So I'm just going to do a couple of circles, and I'm going to go through the few stitches that are left open. I'm going to go through those and then through the blanket. That way I know that that foot or paw is going to be closed and the stuffing is not going to fall out once the little one starts playing with it. So I'm just going to go through a few times, and again I'm making sure that I'm hitting all of those open stitches, one on this side, one on the other side, and I'm going through the blanket so everything is getting closed up and attached securely. So once I've got it all closed up and it's on there securely, so what I'm going to do now is take a nearby stitch, put my needle through it a little bit. I'm going to wrap the working yarn over it twice and pull through, so I'm making a real secure knot there. And then I'm going to put my needle back into that paw, and I'm going to go down towards the end, have my needle come out of the very end. I'm going to pull that string through. I'm going to find my scissors, and then I'm going to cut the cord that I brought through the end of the foot so that the end is hidden away. I weaved it in through that little paw. So I'm just going to go ahead and repeat this for the other three edges, and then I will come back and we'll start working on the ears. All right, and here I am back. I've got the 4 little paws on the edges of my little blankie here. The next thing I want to do, I think since I was struggling so much with the ears, debating which way I want to do them. I think I'm going to do it just the way I usually do. Okay, so no, I am going to change it a little bit. Final answer. So I'm going to go ahead and do a chain 3. Oops, 1, 2, 3. Go into that first loop there. Okay, make a circle, a little bitty circle here, and then in that circle I'm going to do I'm going to chain 1 and then do 6 single crochets into my magic circle. It's not a magic circle, it's a chain 3. I usually like working in magic circles, but not with this yarn. Making it a little more difficult. Okay, even though I did a chain 3, I'm still going to try and pull this. Yep, there we go. So I pulled that beginning chain and it went ahead and closed up the rest of that tiny little gap I had in my chain. So now it's all secured shut. Now I have 6 stitches on my circle here. I'm going to go into that first stitch, do a single crochet, put my stitch marker back in there. I am going to do an increase on this first stitch, so I'm going to go back into that same stitch, do another, so that's 2. I'm going to do 1 into the next stitch. There's 3 stitches. The following stitch is going to be another increase, and then a single, so that's 6 stitches. The next one, whoops, the next one's going to be another increase. So 1, 2, and then 1 single crochet in this final stitch here. So we went from 6 to now there's 9. So I'm going to flip that correct here. All right, now that I've got 9, I'm going to do the same thing again. Oh, I'm going to put a single crochet in that first stitch. Marker. Okay, increase. So I'm going to go ahead and put a second one in there, and then I'm going to do 2 single crochets. 1, 2, and then I'm going to do another increase. And then two singles, I mean. 7, there's 8 stitches. I'll do another increase. 9, 10, and then a single crochet in the last 2. 11 and 12. Okay, so now we have 12 stitches here. So I want to do another row of single crochet all the way around. So we're going to keep that 12. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I'm actually going to do 2 more rows of just 12 single crochets. Okay, last single crochet row of 12. All right. Now in the next row, I'm going to do 2 single crochets and then a decrease. So there's my first stitch and my marker. Second stitch, and then I'm going to do my invisible decrease. And we're going to repeat that. 2 single crochets and then a decrease over the next 2 stitches. Two single crochets. Sorry, my cat is getting into my yarn. And then 2 decreases over the last stitch. So now we are down to 9 stitches. I'm going to do 1 single crochet in this first stitch here, put my crochet hook back in here, and then I did one. I'm going to do a decrease and then just repeat that single crochet, decrease, single crochet, and then decrease. And now I want to do 2 more rounds of just 1 single crochet all the way around. 6. I'm gonna take my stitch marker out, and then I'm gonna do one more row of just single crochets all the way around. 3, 4, 5, 6. So that is our ear. I do not stuff the ears. They are usually pretty good about just kind of holding their shape as it is. But what I'm going to do is cut a long enough cord, string, yarn, however you want a tail long enough that you're going to be able to stitch it into the head when we're done. So I'm going to slip stitch into the next stitch and then just pull through. But the other thing I want to do, I'll do that later. Well, no, I'll do it now. I'm going to quickly put my needle on to give this a little bit of a more stable base. I like to put the needle through both layers on the one side and then go across to the other side and go through both layers. Okay. And then back through the other side. I'm going to like skip a few. So I'm kind of causing it to pull in on itself, and it makes just a bit more of a stable base for when we sew it onto the head. So I'm going to go ahead and pause the video and make a second ear. If you're crocheting along with me, go ahead and rewind a little bit and follow the ear, and I'll meet you back. Alright, and I am back. I've got both of my ears complete. The last thing we're going to crochet here is going to be the head. So since I'm struggling with the magic circles with this yarn, I'm going to use the extra piece of yarn approach again. So again, I'm just going to take an extra piece of yarn. I'm going to wrap it over my fingers twice like you would with a magic circle. I'll put my hook underneath there and just grab a hold of my yarn that I'm working with, pull it under that hoop, grab it, and then come back through. So then I'm going to go ahead and do an extra slip, or a slip stitch. I'm going to put in my chain marker, or my marker here. I'm going to do, we're going to do 8 single crochets in this first round. 1, 2, 3, 4. You want to make sure you're getting into that circle. 5, 6, 7, and 8. So again, I'm going to pull both of those sides of that circle that I've got going. I'm going to pull them back and forth. I'm going to go from one string to another just to make sure that it goes uniformly. There we go. We are closed up. And then what I'm going to do on the round 2 is increase in all 8 of those stitches. So we should go from 8 stitches, 8 single crochets, to 16 single crochets in that second round. I'm going to do my first stitch, put my marker in. You want to make the stitches somewhat tight so you're not losing stuffing, but you don't want to do it so tight that you can't get in there. Because again, the chenille's really hard to work with anyway. It's hard to see your stitches, so you kind of have to feel them. So I did 2 single crochets in that first stitch, 2 in the second, going into my third. There's 6 stitches, so that's 7 and 8. 9 and 10, 11 and 12, 13 and 14, and the last stitch here, 15 and 16. Okay, so with the next row we're going to do 1 single crochet, 1 increase. We should go from 16 to 24. So there's my 1 single crochet in my first stitch. I'm going to do an increase, 2 single crochets in that second, and then keep repeating that 1 single crochet, 1 increase. And I'm not working over my ends at this point because we're going to be stuffing the head anyway. It's not going to show. I'm just going to let it hang. It's hard enough to work with this kind of yarn. 1, 2. Just a few stitches left in this round. And then 2 stitches in this last stitch. Okay, so that should be 24. In this next round here, we are going to do 1 single crochet in this first one, a single crochet in the second stitch. We're going to do 2 single crochets and then an increase, and that's going to be the pattern around for the this entire row. 1, 2 single crochets. Here's my increase. A little over halfway around here. 1, 2, increase, 1, 2, increase, and then looks like we have about 1 more round or 1 more group here. 1, 2, increase in that last stitch. So now we're at 32 stitches in the round, and what we're going to do is 4 rounds of 32 stitches, so no increases or decreases. What we're going to do is just, it should start forming the ball because we're going to do the head. Since it's just plain stitches for 4 rounds, I'm going to go ahead and do this off camera. So if you want to pause your video and do your 4 rounds and come back, I will meet you back here after I'm done with my 4 rows. Alright, so I have completed my 4 rows of single crochets for 32 counts. So you can see it's becoming the head. So this next row we're going to start decreasing. I'm going to go ahead and do my first stitch, put my crochet or my stitch marker in there. We're going to do 2 single crochets and then an invisible decrease, and that's going to be the repeat for this round. So a single crochet, a second single crochet, single crochet, two together, but I'm doing mine as an invisible decrease, and that's going to be the pattern, the repeat pattern for this round, like I said. So we're going to go from 32 stitches in the last rounds to this is going to take us to 24 stitches. Alright, and two together in these last two stitches, and that's that round. I'll do one more round before I start putting a little bit of stuffing in the head here. But this round I'm just going to do the one single crochet in that first one, put my stitch marker in. The repeat for this round is going to be one single crochet, one decrease. So I'm going to do my invisible decrease now. One single. One invisible, about halfway around here. So really pay attention with here that you're not missing stitches. We don't want to leave any gaps where the stuffing's gonna start falling out. Coming up to the tail end, I think I have two more repeats. Single, two together, single, and I should have two stitches left for my two together. Alright, so we went from 24 stitches down to 16 stitches, and there's not a whole lot of room left, so before we decrease any more, I'm going to go ahead and grab my polyfill here. And again, I'm going to fluff it up real nice before I put it in there. I just kind of break it up, fluff it. Sometimes I notice in the bag, and a lot of times when I buy the bag, they've kind of done the vacuum seal on it, so it's all just real flat. I like to fluff it up before I put it in there. Now again with this, I want to put enough stuffing in there to be able to keep the head's form and hold it up with the ears, but I don't want to overfill. So I'm going to just kind of move that polyfill around in there to make sure that the head is keeping that circular shape, kind of working around the edges, so it's kind of making a crater in the middle. And then I'm going to go ahead and grab just a little more of the polyfill, stick it into that crater I just made, and this should be about enough. You don't want it where it's puffing way out of the head where you have to struggle with it when you're closing it. So mine's pretty much in there. So I'm going to put my fingers inside the work while I'm working now to kind of keep my needle from going in. You don't want the hook to be grabbing a hold of that polyfill and pulling it through your stitches. So my finger's going to stay on the inside of the work here. And then I'm going to go ahead and bring the camera down a little bit more so you can kind of see what I'm doing. I'm wearing a lot of my chenille. Okay. So my hand is inside the work. It's really hard with this light. I apologize. But I'm, like I said, I want to not pull out that polyfill. We're just going to do decreases all the way around. Since we're sitting at 16, it should be 8 decreases to get us back down to 8 stitches. So I'm going to do this first decrease here, and then I'm going to put my stitch marker in there to remember that's where I started. So there's 1, and then I tend to work quite a bit slower on this round. It's just a little more difficult for me. I don't know if it's just my eyesight getting older or what, but a little bit more difficult for me to see this row. Oh man, and working with any black yarns, I cannot see the shadows, and it's just, my eyes cannot do it at all. I mean, it's always been difficult, but it's way harder lately. Okay, there's, whoops, lost my stitch. There's 3. Here's 4, so we are halfway around. So the next part is probably my favorite, when you get to embroider on the face. 5. So I've done a lot of my amigurumi, or my stuffed animals. A lot of them that I have made in the past have had the safety eyes in there, which are super adorable, but if they're being given to little ones, that's a choking hazard. And we've had more and more customers asking us if we can do the embroidered faces and not the safety eyes. And by all means, we want to make the customer happy. So that's part of why I'm doing these Snugglies, is we've had a few people that wanted faces without those safety eyes in there. So if that's a request of yours, we can definitely do that. But I just have a lot more fun doing the embroidered faces. You can just put a bit more personality to it. So at the end of that last decrease, I'm going to just pull my string through here. I'm going to get my needle, and to close up the last little bit of this hole and to do it evenly, I like to use the needle method, where I just go through the first loop of all, it should be 6 stitches, or it should be 8 stitches that I have left. I'm going to go through just the front loop of them, and then possibly that first one again, but I just go through all of them, just loop it, keep going, loop it, keep going. I got 2 more to go here. Can't tell if that's where I started or not. We'll go in there anyway. And then you just pull it real tight, and it just cinches everything closed like it does with the magic circle in the beginning. Okay, but I want to just put a couple more stitches in here because I want to make sure this is good and secure. I'm going to put a little knot in a nearby stitch here, and I'm actually just going to leave this string on here because I think that's going to be about enough string for me to attach it to the blanket when I get to that part. So I'm going to go ahead, yeah, and just leave it there. So it's kind of my little snowball now, but we've got the head. The next thing I'm going to go ahead and do is put the ears, I'm going to attach the ears so that I can see where I want to put the rest of the face. The ears are kind of going to be my markers. Just show me where I want. So I'm going to go ahead and thread my needle here. So if the string's coming down, that's going to be the bottom where I'm going to attach it. So we want to work at the top of the head. And I'm thinking about the third and fourth row from the top. And you just want to go into the head a little bit and then go through the bottom of that ear and that little base that you made. Go back down into the head. And we're just going to keep doing that a few times. Just go through the ear and then go through a few stitches in the head. I'll just do that a few times. All the way across the base of that ear, which is only about 2 or 3 stitches, but I like to do it a few times. If little ones are going to be playing with this, I mean, I've had 5 children. They can be destructive. They don't mean to be, but if there's a way to break it, usually they do find that way. So now that I have some string left, I'm going to go down into the head. I don't want to get it confused with the one that's already hanging there, but I'm going to go somewhere towards the bottom back, and I'm going to pull that string through. And then I'm just going to leave it there. And I know this is not the one that I'm going to attach it with because it's in the back of the head and not down at the bottom. So now that one ear is attached. This string on the back, if I pull it, is going to move the ear because it's attached to the ear. I'm going to leave that there for a minute and you'll see why momentarily. Let me go ahead and grab the other ear. We're going to get that all laced up on the needle. Okay, so then I'm just going to look at that bunny and try to position the second ear to be pretty much directly across from it so that they are evenly spaced and placed, and do the exact same thing. I'm going to go through a few stitches on the head and the ear. I'm going to go across the entire base of that ear, just securing that into place. Other end here. All right, now that, nope, you know what, I'm going to go through, do another stitch or two because that's still a little wibbly wobbly. Okay, now I'm going to poke, and this is why I have such a long needle, is for things like this. I'm going to poke that needle through the head, and I'm going to try and come through the exact same stitch hole that that other string is through from the other ear. I'm just going to pull that all the way through here. Okay, so those 2 strings that are holding those ears, I'm going to tie a knot in the back of the head here. I'm going to tie it pretty securely, and that's just going to be a little bit of extra reinforcement to make sure that those ears are not easily going to be pulled off. Before I learned this trick, I was making some stuffed animals for my grandson, Owen. God bless that little boy, love him to death, but he's a typical boy, and he breaks everything. just like my kids did. My grandkid is the same. So I made him a little fox, and he's pulled he's pulled limbs off of that. I've put them back on, and he pulls them back off. So I have learned this is really a good idea to do. So we've got both of the little bunny ears on our head now, but we still don't have our face. So I'm going to just squeeze his head a little bit and make sure it's going to be nice and formed. Okay. I think the first thing I want to start with is the nose. And with the nose, I'm going to do a pink nose this time. The last bunny I made is a pink bunny, and it's really hard to see in this light, but this is a pink bunny with a white nose. Now I'm doing a white bunny, and I'm going to give him a pink nose. So I'm going to get some more. Once I find the end of my string here, I'm going to go ahead and get a piece of this. You know what? Maybe I'm not. There is the end. Oh, I'm going to make it so knotted. I hate that. The struggle. There we go. Oh, both the ends are stuck right next to each other. Perfect. Okay. So I like to grab just a longer than necessary. I'd rather have more than run out. So I just grab a really rather long piece of string here because we're going to go through multiple times. So I'm going to lace this up. Okay. So again, I don't want to go through the same one that I'm going to attach to the blanket with. We're going to keep that by itself. I'm going to find some random place, probably in the front part of the chin. I'm going to go up into the face, and then I want the nose obviously just smack dab in the center, and I'm only going to do just a few lines, but I want to center it. So I'm going to come from under the chin. I'm going to struggle a little to get through all that polyfill. There we go. All right, I want to leave a little bit of a string at the bottom because again we're going to tie and secure it. We're going to make sure it's not going to go anywhere. Now all I'm going to do is just go around about 3 stitches worth in the middle. I'm just going to go around and around and around. There we go. And we're just going to create a little nose on him here. Not sure if you'll be able to see in the light here, but yeah, it's a very hard to tell the difference, but I can see it in person and it's super cute. He's got a little bit of a nose going. So again, I'm going to just do a couple more times through here. The pink is looking really cute on the white bunny. And if you've never embroidered a face onto anything before, because I never did until fairly recently. I've done a lot of them now, but I didn't before. It's actually not, it's more, it's scary to go into it, but once you do it once or twice, it's not too bad. So this last time that I go in, I'm going to go back into the same hole. I'm going to go through to the bottom of the chin there and come out of the same hole that that other pink went into. Okay, and the nose looks really nice and centered. It looks, you can kind of see them, looks really good. So I'm going to go ahead and again secure that nose in, that those stitches are not going to come out. So I'm going to tie about 3 knots real tight. And I did forget to say this when I was cutting the string from the ears. If you just cut it really close to, you're not going to be able to see it in the light, real close to the ball though, you can push that knot into that stitch and then it just kind of disappears. You won't see it. So that's why I pull it through. So those knots that I've done, you can't even see that those have been on here. He's shedding so much. Okay, so Bunny has some ears that are flappy flappy, and he's got his little nose. Now we're going to grab some black yarn and we're going to start making some of the facial features. So again, I always cut way more than I need. I cut just a really long piece of black. Thread it up. So every time I go in, I try to go to a different spot. I don't want a bunch of knots in one spot of the bunny and where you're going to be able to see it or feel it. So I think I'm going to go maybe in a cheek, the lower cheek jowl. Okay. I'm going to come up right smack dab in the middle bottom part of where the nose is. Literally right in the middle. Then I'm going to make a line that goes down. Let me poke out and find, there's smack dab in the middle. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to leave a little bit of a cord hanging out of the bottom. I'm going to go down about a row and a half straight down. And then as I go up in the head, I'm going to come from down here and I'm going to go out because I want to start the outside of the eyeball. Or well, he's going to have sleepy eyes, but I'm going to come out between the nose and the ear, but more towards the ear because I want it to be the outside part of that eye. So as I pull, you'll see that line will form. You don't want to pull too super hard. You want to make it where it's going to be snug, but not sink into the face. Okay, and then we come out here. So I want to kind of go just up and over a few stitches. And then I'm going to go downwards in the middle. Okay. So as it's going in there, before it goes all the way up, I want to catch it in the middle and go right back into the same stitch. And what that's going to do is it's going to make it look like a sleepy eye. So I'm going to poke my needle out to the other side because we are going to work on the other eye. So right about here. There. Okay, so if that's the outside of the eye, you want the inside to go here, and again I'm going to go down so I can make it a sleepy eye. Okay, and then I want to catch it and go back in here, and then I'm going to just go back down, out. Oops. Make sure you're going in the same hole, and then I want to make sure I'm coming out of the bottom jowl area where that other black cord went in. And then as I'm pulling, I'm going to do it slowly because I want to make sure that I have the eye not sucking inward. I want to make sure that it's flush on the head, not pulling inward. There. So now we have the sleepy eyes, the nose, and then the little line underneath. I don't usually do a mouth on them. The blanket will go right up under there. So now that the face is done, I'm going to tie a knot again but you don't want to pull this one too terribly tight, because the tighter you pull it, the more those facial features are going to sink into the head and you won't really be able to see them too much. So I'm going to make it fairly tight there. I'm going to do about 3 knots. And I'm going to trim off all the excess. Use that scrap. Okay. Another thing you can do, if it doesn't just pop in there, you could take a hook or a needle and you can just kind of manipulate it to sink down inside there and not be visible. There we go. Another thing is, if the features do sink in at all, you can take the needle and kind of go underneath that one string and you can move it, manipulate it a little bit to bring it back to life if you need to. He's looking pretty cute. He's sleepy. All right. Last piece and we're all done with this. I'm going to go ahead and put the hook or the needle on the string from the head here. And since this is a rectangle and all of them are the same, you either just, you don't want to go sideways like this and make them, maybe you do want them a chunky monkey, but generally we would do the up and down here. You just put the bunny wherever in the middle that you want. You're just going to take a couple of these stitches in the middle and just secure that head, same as how we did the ears and the feet. You're just going to go through the blanket, through a couple stitches of the head, and just keep going back and forth a few times until it's secure. Probably going to do about 4 or 5 stitches across just to make sure it's on there real nice, real secure. And there we go. So I'm going to come back up through the head again. I am going to find a stitch nearby and create a little extra knot. And then to bury the string that I put the blanket onto the head with, I'm just going to go back up into the head and poke it somewhere out the top back. Pull that string up through there. And go ahead and cut off that excess that's popping out of that stitch. And the Bunny Snugglie is complete. So this one is ready to go out to the customer, and you watched it be created. I hope you enjoyed. Please feel free to like our channel, give a thumbs up if this was a decent video without being too terrible. I always appreciate you all. Take care and we'll see you again.